Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new session of the Routing Loop. I'm Alex. I'm a networking specialist solutions architect at AWS and a long-standing host of the Routing Loop show. Today, I'm going to be hosting Ankush and Salman. I'll give them the opportunity to introduce themselves in a second. But before we go there, for those of you who are new to the show, I already see familiar faces here in the chat, but for those of you who are new, we are the Routing Loop. We talk about all things networking on AWS, connectivity services, remote access today. And we have this show every Wednesday, starting 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, or 7 p.m. GMT or UK time. Time zones are hard. So that's it. Ankush, Salman, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves really quickly?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Alex. Hi, everyone. This is Ankush Goyal. I'm Senior Technical Account Manager here at AWS, and I'm looking forward to presenting this session. Thank you, Alex, for giving us the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining, Salman.
Hey everyone, my name is Salman Ahmed. I'm also a senior technical account manager. And thanks again for allowing us to present this topic.
Awesome. Well, happy to be here. Happy to have you folks here on the show. Super looking forward to chatting about securing access, remote access, user access to Amazon VPCs using verified access and client VPN. But before we go there, if you're wondering what's with this background that you are not recognizing and where's my usual streaming place, well, I'll let you know that I'm in New York this week, and tomorrow we're getting ready for. Now we're getting ready for tomorrow, our first application networking activation day. It is going to happen here in New York in our office, JFK 14. And if you folks are interested, there's still time to register. So I'll put this link in the chat here. Just go ahead and register. Space is limited, so make sure you do it fast. And see you tomorrow here in the office. We're gonna have super cool things prepared. We're gonna talk about VPC Lattice. You folks know already that I love VPC Lattice is almost as much as I love IPv6. So super excited for tomorrow. Today we've done the run of the event internally with our colleagues here in AWS. So really happy to have it tomorrow for all of you who are going to be joining us. Now, that being said, without further ado, although I would love for us to be talking about VPC Lattice more, Ankush, Salman, let's get to you folks and let's see what is it all about with secure access to VPCs and workloads using verified access and client VPN. What are we going to start with? Verified access or client VPN?
Yeah, we'll start with verified access. We'll throw some challenge. We'll start with verified access, how it can solve it, and then we'll move on to client VPN.
Awesome. That sounds perfect. So I think we have slides ready, right? So
Yes.
should I bring up
Yes.
the
Yes.
slides?
Yeah. Here you go.
Awesome. Um, before we run into it and we dive deep, for all of you folks in the chat, first and foremost, let us know where you're joining us from. Say hi there in the chat. I told you folks that I'm today in New York. So let us know where you're joining us from. And anytime you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll make sure to answer them. I already have some questions about these architectures, so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to ask them. And Ankush and Salman here are experts in this, so I'm going to be learning a lot today. Looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Alex. So let's start with the remote access consideration. So in our modern digital world, where the users are accessing their corporate application from anywhere, they are working remotely, and with that, organizations are facing kind of a common challenge that how do they enable their team to work remotely while keeping everything safe, secure, and simple. There are other organizations also kind of a challenge with them or struggling with the problem that and it can even trigger when each user have a specific need. There are users who need access to a part of their corporate network, or some need access to the whole network. They are users who just need to access their web applications. They are users who just need to maybe SSH or RDP. So with that, that each and every user might have a different requirement to access your corporate applications, corporate environment, and that became very tricky and challenging for the organization, that how to provide that access to these users while keeping everything simple. And the one size fits all approach not always work. So today we are going to talk about two different services, AWS Verified Access and Client VPN, and we'll try to talk about different use cases which these services can solve and help you out to give access to your remote users.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we'll start with AWS Verified Access. Uh, AWS Verified Access, it helps you, or it provides your users a secure access to connect or to access your corporate applications without the use of any VPN. So you can connect to these applications over no-normal list over the internet. Like, it also helps you to improve your security posture. Like traditionally, if a user connect to your application, uh, that whatever application you have, they evaluate the user request, they authorize them, and after that, the user can access the network. There's no reauthorization process out there. But verified access is built on the zero trust principle, where each and every request which is coming to your application or accessing your application get evaluated in real time. Every time you try to access, it evaluate that request based on the policies you have provided and take a decision whether to approve or decline that transaction. It al-
Um, I I know that there's a quite a bit of a like industry-wide discussion of like zero trust, and everyone is kind of trending towards adopting it. Um, I also know because I said that I love VPC Lattice, right? It's one of my favorite services that it does zero trust for service to service communication.
Mhm.
And Ave also does zero trust, right? But it does it for client to service, right? So
Right.
it's a bit different.
Different, right? Yeah, so letters is service to service, and this one we are talking with the when the users are trying to your applications,
Got it.
right?
Awesome. Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah, so in addition to that, it also verified access also helps you to or your user experience, because they are not dealing with the VPN complexity. They don't need to install those things, connect through it, and those kind of things. In addition, that it also help you from the security operation perspective, that with AVA, whenever the request come, everything get logged to your, you have option to log it to the CloudWatch or send it to S3 or Kinesis, and from there, if you want, you can use your existing third-party software, so you can send it there, which further help you to perform any audits or anything on those logs, that it, because it give you that what all transactions are approved or declined, and you can go back and look for those.
Awesome.
Okay, so when we started, or when we launched AVA a couple of years back, we started by giving a option that you can connect to your web hosted applications over HTTPS protocol. And we also had a network interface endpoint, that if you have a application running on a single host and you want to do some testing or you want to connect to that, you can use that interface. Now recently we introduced two different type of endpoints which work on your TCP protocol, that you can create or give access to your whole network CIDR, where the user can connect to the whole CIDR range. And if you have a RDS instances running, like it can be an instance or cluster or proxy, you can create an endpoint for those databases as well.
Cool. Does it work for RDS for Aurora too? Does it matter what engine you're using in RDS?
Alex, that I can double check, but to my understanding, it works with that as well. But I can double
Awesome.
check on that.
I think it works too.
Yeah,
I think it works too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
Okay, so when you are connecting uh, to your application, corporate applications over AVA, if you're using HTTPS, you can use your normal browser and you can connect with that. But if you are building or you are trying to connect by using the TCP endpoints like network CIDR or basically non-HTTPS, you need to install a lightweight client called the connectivity client, and you provide your VPC AWS Verified Access instance configuration to it, and from that you can connect it. So that's a very lightweight agent. You just do it one time, and after that, it just create a tunnel between your computer to the AVA, a secure tunnel to pass all the traffic.
Oh, so you mentioned that you don't need a VPN, but you do need this connectivity client, correct?
Yes, that is required only for the TCP or non-HTTPS connections. But if you
Okay.
are trying to access any web host application, for that you don't need the connectivity client.
But it's still no VPN,
Yeah,
essentially.
it's still no VPN. It's not
Oh.
impacting your existing, like with a VPN, you have split tunnel fundamentals, right?
Mhm.
Whether you want to send your traffic to the internet or everything you're routing, but with this, you don't need to worry about it. Just the connectivity client you are installing to create that tunnel.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
Okay, so let's dive deep into the architecture of verified access, and let's talk about a little bit that how what are the different component of verified access are there, and how that help you to there for remote user to access your applications. So in this architecture, I have three different applications running. I have one with web hosted application running behind my network or application load balancer. I do have a single EC2 instance running, which my user need to access. And the last, I have a RDS instance as well running here. So very first thing, the first component comes with verified access is the trust providers. Uh, Trust providers is a service that manage user identities and device security state. Verified access works with two kind of trust provider. You get identity and device, which kind of with the name clear that identity deals with the user identity with their metadata, and device trust provider basically deals with what from which device they are trying to access the application, will get the data and try to evaluate whether the device is compliant or not.
Oh,
With yeah, with identity trust provider now, either you can use our native IAM identity center, or you can use your third party any open ID like Okta, Dio, or Cognito as well. You can use it. With device trust provider, we have three options. You can use Jamf, CrowdStrike, and Jump Cloud.
cool. For the identity provider part, we like Ava does support IDC integration, literally. So
Right, right,
you can essentially have any identity provider.
right. So like
Okay.
Okta and Dio, just an example. If you have
Okay.
anything else with work, that's also supported.
Cool.
Right. So once you create the trust provider, then you can create a verified access instance. And verified access instance basically it evaluates any request coming to your application through AVA. It evaluates those requests based on the policies, everything you write, and take action that whether those requests will be granted or declined. And when you create this instance, you have to at least attach one identity trust provider, and you can do only one, but you can have multiple device providers attached to that if you want.
Folks in the chat, let us know if you want to see a live demo of this. Today, we've prepared just the architecture's overview and just making sure that all of you are familiar with what the options are and what the considerations are for each. If you have questions, absolutely share them in the chat. And if you want to see a demo, share with us in the chat, and we're going to plan for it. We're going to have Ankush and Salman back here on the show to go through the step-by-step setup.
Right. So the next component in AWS Verified Access COM is the Verified Access Group, and group is basically collection of your endpoints. So we recommend that if you have suppose 100 different applications on your corporate network, and suppose 15 of those are your HR application, so you can combine all those applications endpoint under a single group so that you can have a same security posture for all those applications. That policy you can write at the group level. Whatever condition you have, you can define it there, and all those 15 applications will have the same policy or same security posture.
Awesome. Can I have multiple groups under an instance or just one?
No, you can have multiple groups under instance.
Cool.
So like you can have only one instance, and then you can put all your applications under that, and then
Mhm.
those application you can segregate by groups. So suppose you have HR, sales, or maybe finance application, you can create one group for sales, one for HR, and one for your finance.
No, very cool. Okay,
Yep.
like it.
Yeah, and that way basically you can have a different policy, because there are different requirement to access the HR applications versus sales application versus
Mhm.
finance. So you can have those policies written at the group level, catered to that particular group of applications.
That makes sense.
So the next component we create is the endpoint. So you can have multiple endpoints within the group. So in this case, I'm creating one endpoint for each of my uh, type. So first endpoint I created for the network interface, which give me access to access my Elastic Network interface. The other one I created for HTTPS, and the third one I created for RDP to connect to my RDS. And the last one I created a network cider range, where the whole network cider for the subnet, I'm creating an endpoint for that, so the user can have access to the whole cider instead of just having a particular instance or particular application. Other thing you might,
Yeah. I'm
yeah, go
gonna
ahead.
wait with the questions, but I do have a question of
Yeah, go
how
ahead.
do we
Go ahead.
discover all the things in that subnet? I think you're gonna get to it, right? So
Yes,
we don't need to touch it now, but I think everyone's asking like, oh, an entire subnet, like how do I get to know all the things that are there inside that subnet? So
right.
would love to touch on that.
Yeah, I have a slide on that. That once you create that endpoint, what happened actually behind the scene.
Mhm.
So I'll cover that in my upcoming slide.
Awesome.
Yeah. So another thing you might notice that here, when we created the endpoint, you can write policy at the endpoint level. So we wrote a policy at the group level where we consolidate all the endpoints for that group. But if a particular application or endpoint need specific requirement, or you need to write additional policy, you can do it at the endpoint level as well. So when AWS Verified Access evaluate, it evaluate both the group level and the endpoint level policies and take decision based on these two policies.
Got So you can do like more specific, less specific, as in like the group could be broader, and if you want more
Right,
granular control at each
right,
application level, you can do it at the endpoint.
right,
Very cool.
right. So overall, these four components in together make you your verified access, AWS verified access, and then user can use the DNS endpoints which is provided by this endpoint, which I'm covering in my upcoming slides. Using that, they can access these applications.
Oh, very cool.
So next thing, what happened that when user send a request or try to access these applications based on whatever endpoint they have, two things happen at the verified access level: authentication and authorization. So first thing, based on your identity trust provider, it asks you to provide your identity. It asks you to log in, provide your login ID and the username, password, all this information, and fetch all the data related to the user from that trust provider. And if you are using a device trust provider as well, then it will get the data from a device as well and get it. After that, it evaluate the data against the policies you have written. That's where the authorization comes into the picture, and authorize the request to make sure whether the user can access that application or not. So
Mhm.
authentication happen once, but authorization keep on happening, that anytime user try to access those applications, every time verified access to make sure that user is still authorized to access that application or not.
Got it. Interesting. So is there a possibility, for example, if I decide, what if I decide that a specific remote user should not have access to an endpoint anymore? What happens with the existing connections? Will they still remain open?
Yeah, so what you can do, you can update the policy at the endpoint or group level based on your requirement. And when the next time the user try to access it, even the connection
Okay,
still
got it.
there, that policy will be evaluated and they will decline the transaction.
Okay, got it. Got it. Cool.
Okay. Next, you can also integrate this verified access with the WAF. So if you want to write the WAF policies, you can do that, and those policies will be evaluated whenever the request come and take a decision whether to approve or decline that transaction.
Awesome. And I see there that application load balancer that you have in there, it's actually an internal one.
Yes,
This means that I don't have to have like public facing load balancers. I'm not going to
no,
consume public v4 addresses and all
right.
of that.
Right. So there's a requirement for AWS verified access. When you create it, you have to have an internal network replication load balancer. You
Okay.
cannot have a public facing.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. Love it. Secure all the way.
Right. Yeah. In this, like, your whole subnet is a private, so whole VPC is private. All the subnets are private. So we are not having even an internet gateway here. That
Mhm.
no connectivity to the internet except like verified access is getting the request and then is routing it to your applications.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and any request coming from the user, like if you're using the web hosted applications, then you provide a certificate to us. We use that. And for the TCP based access, we encrypt your traffic from the user till AV endpoint, and then whatever encryption you have within the VPC normal that follows through.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Do those certificates, do they get managed in AWS Certificate Manager?
Yes, we whenever you
Perfect.
create a web hosted application, then yes, you have to create there.
Perfect.
Okay, so moving to the first HTTPS application. So when you create it, that particular endpoint, we provide you a AWS verified access, provide the DNS name, which you can add to your Route 53 if you're using Route 53, or if you're using a third-party DNS provider, you can add that DNS name as a CNAME. Like in this case, I'm showing that app.example.com will be pointing to the whatever endpoint this verified access is providing. So once you do that, after that, user can access that application by using that DNS name. And
Sounds good. Okay.
okay, and the same workflow will be there, that you will be authenticated. Authorization will happen based on the policies, and you will access it. Okay, so what happened if you create a network side or range endpoint? So in this case, whenever you create a network side or range, what AVA does, it goes and find out what all ENIs for EC2 are running in that particular subnet or in that particular side or range, and it creates a DNS name for each one of those. And in that case, it provides you the AWS provided DNS name, which is kind of resolvable from your laptop, and then user can use this DNS name to connect to this. So in this case, the example I created an endpoint for my port 22, and for TCP you can use any port. Like if you want to have the different port, you want to connect this application, you can use that as well. So then user can use SSH and that particular provided DNS name and connect to it. Uh, Another use case I can throw it there, that I was working with one of the customer where they have a private link
Mhm.
endpoint created in that particular subnet, and that particular application is basically a SaaS provider providing a private link, and they want to access that application over. So we created a TCP endpoint for that particular CIDR so that both the ENIs can be there, and we access that application over the TCP protocol.
Oh, interesting. So you're coming essentially through the AVA endpoint to the private link endpoint to the
Right,
SaaS application, and you're
right,
actually applying on the AVA endpoint, like the entire policy authentication authorization piece. That
right,
is so cool.
right.
Interesting.
So other thing is, like, right now we had only 3 instances running, but in case in future you run another instance in the same subnet in the same CIDR, AVA will detect that and create an endpoint for you automatically, and then you can use that to connect that.
One more quick question. I think this
Hmm.
comes up a lot.
Hmm.
Custom DNS is a thing. Like everyone wants to use custom DNS names for
Right,
all of these things. And it's not like, I don't think anyone would remember that generated DNS name with the IP address on. So
right.
can customers configure private DNS?
Yep.
Oh,
That's my next slide.
perfect. You read my thoughts, Ankush. Perfect.
So when you create verified access instance, at that time for TCP or network side related endpoints, you can provide your own custom subdomain name, domain, whatever you want to use it. And once you provide it, after that, when you create that endpoint, we use that DNS name to create those DNS records for those
Oh,
instances, and then you can
sounds
use
so
these
cool.
one. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
And last, for RDS as well, when you create the endpoint, AWS Verified Access provide the DNS name, and you can use the DNS name to connect to the RDS. So that's all I wanted to cover in AWS Verified Access today. Uh, Anyone have any question? I'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, over
Yeah.
to Salman, who will cover the client VPN next.
Yeah. Let us know in the chat, folks, if you have any questions. You folks are awfully quiet today. We have some folks coming in and watching us from LA. We have folks from Ohio or US East too. We have folks from Johannesburg. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining us today. Any questions about AWS Verified Access? You folks were extremely excited to see that we have the session. So just let us know if you have any questions. If not, well, you folks decide if you have questions or not. Let's bring up Salman's screen here. We're going to switch to Client VPN, but before we do that, I have super quick question. So as we're writing these policies, right? The um, AVA policies are CEDAR policies, right? So that's the
Mhm.
CEDAR policy language part. Um, what are the most common things you folks see in like client policies? What do customers match on when they're writing those policies? Is it like the OS version? Is it time of day access? Is it like what are some of the most common parameters there that are matched as conditions for allowing access?
Yeah, so again, it's depend upon the requirements and what they do it, but yeah, certainly like matching the corporate domain name. If I talk about the identity piece,
Mhm.
right? And sometime user also want to make sure that that particular user falling in a particular group or not. So if they are
Got it.
giving access to the HR application, then they should be part of the HR group, only then they will get access it. So it's easy to move around if person is going from HR department to finance department, some other department, that they don't need to rewrite those policies.
Oh,
From the
cool.
Yeah, from the device side, there could be couple of things like OS version is again like if the user is running a older version of operating system that is not secure, like this can add the vulnerability. So checking
Yeah.
those things. MFA is the another one which we have seen people want to or organization want to add it to make sure that they have MFA enabled on their devices or when they are accessing it. uh, yeah, there are a couple of other which I don't have on top of my head, but yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, they are these are the things which I can think of right now, which I've seen organizations are adding.
That is super useful. And I think also super useful is the fact that you can match on those policy conditions and on like the group or where what the user is part of as organization structure.
Right,
Even if the user comes in and connects from a Starbucks or from a coffee shop or from, I don't know, a restaurant or from
right,
home, at the end of the day, they should be able to access the applications that they are entitled to,
right.
regardless of their network.
Yeah, just wanted to chime in there. I think we don't cover it here, but there's the logging capability is also great. So you can
Yeah.
see what is being captured and write policies using that as well to give you some idea on how to restrict, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing that, Salman. So we also have a policy assistant as part of AWS Verified Access, where you can try out that particular policy before you implement that policy. So we have seen that users or organizations were scared that hey, what if I implement that policy that may impact our users.
Yeah.
So they can test those policy in that policy assistant environment before they roll it out to make sure that it's
Very
giving
cool.
you the right results what they want to.
Perfect. That is awesome. I think the logging and visibility piece is probably one of the most important aspects of this. We do have a question from Ishan. What about using VPN inside the VPC? Ishan, do you want to clarify a bit if you're talking about client VPN, which we're going to be chatting about right now, or if you're talking about site-to-site VPN, which is another flavor of this? And site-to-site VPN, as its name stands, it's essentially between your on-prem location maybe or your data center and AWS, and you can terminate it in the VPC, you can terminate it on Transit Gateway, you can terminate it on Cloud WAN. So there's multiple ways to terminate that site-to-site VPN. Client VPN is the one that terminates it inside the VPC. So let's talk about this. If you want to add a bit more details around your question and where would you be using it, or what is specifically what you're referring to, just let us know in the chat. And before we go to client VPN, let's see Dominic's question. So, are verified access endpoints deployed in multiple AZs, or it's fully managed service by AWS and we don't need to think about it, Jay?
Okay, yeah. So when you create your endpoints, you have to provide some subnets. And what we do that behind the scene that we drop some ENIs on those subnets. So we provide at least two availability zone subnets there. So that's how it is kind of covered. That is with multi-AZ. So yeah,
Right.
we do have ENIs for those for each endpoint.
So the best practice is to provide multiple AZs, at least two
Right.
subnets across two AZs,
Two
so
AZs,
that
yeah.
you have high availability. Okay, perfect. Love it. Any other questions, folks, in the chat? If not, we are going to slowly move to client VPN and overview what it does. No questions. No questions. No questions. Then let's hit it, Salman.
All right. Thanks, Alex and Ankush. So yeah, I'll be talking about client VPN. I know the stage was set with using no VPN, but there are times that we may need to use VPN, and that's we're going to cover some use cases and how customers leverage this service. So customers always, before AVA, they would need remote users to reach AWS resources, right? As Alex mentioned, there's site-to-site VPN, which connects your on-prem environment to AWS, but then you have remote users and they need to also connect to AWS resources. So this is that service that provides you that type of access. It's elastic in scale. So once you configure it, it scales on its own depending on your demand. So if you have users that work from home, the demand can fluctuate in terms of the scaling that AWS manages. It gives you all like the full access control in terms of authorized users that can connect to the client VPN endpoint. We'll cover a little bit on how that works. And it not just gives you access to AWS resources, but if your AWS environment is connected to your on-prem, it allows a remote user to connect to this endpoint and also with your configuration reach on-prem if it's connected with Direct Connect or site-to-site VPN or other VPCs as well. So we'll go through the architecture next. Just quickly touch base on, so to use the client VPNs, there is a software you need. AWS provides and maintains a version of the VPN software. It's available with all these three operating systems. You can also use like open source softwares like OpenVPN and other clients that are available. The most recent launch with Client VPN was the 5 profiles. As you can see, I have like 2 profiles in that screenshot there, connected to one, but you can connect up to 5. So if that arises as a use case for your users that they need to connect to multiple different regions with this Client VPN software or Client VPN endpoints are deployed, you can connect to multiple and don't need to kind of disconnect and reconnect.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, let's walk through the architecture and the deployment of the endpoint. So we in this use case, it can be anything, but we just use an RDS as an example. Again, it's inside of your VPC in a private subnet. You have a remote user. You have configured like a client VPN software for them, and they're going to need to access this. So how do we set that up? So the first thing you do is when you create the client VPN, you will create by providing how the user is going to authenticate. You're going to have options. Are you going to use certificate, Active Directory, SAML-based authentication? How you're going to verify and authenticate your user? And once you go through that phase, you have the client VPN service there, and you will see the endpoint move to pending associate state. At this point, like you just have like created some kind of container, as you can imagine, but you have not like deployed it yet fully because it's not connected to your VPC. So now the next step comes as you're configuring, you have to associate this to your network. So you will pick the subnets you want to deploy. For high availability, we pick two subnets, right? Two private subnets again. As you can see, everything's still in private. And we deploy two interfaces, one in each private subnet. And automatically the route table, so Client VPN has its own route table, so it automatically adds the route. So it allows any user connecting to this endpoint to reach the 10/16 network, as you can see. But if you're able to establish a connection at this point, like your user can now connect to the endpoint, but they still can't access it because I still haven't authorized them to do so.
Oh, interesting. So there's another step here. I think there's been like a long time since I've last set up client VPN. I forgot about this last step.
Yeah. Yeah. So by default, like the routing is set up. Your users start connecting, but they can't do anything. That's the security like policies that you have to allow access to the VPC. So you write an authorization rule allowing your users to reach the VPC CIDR. So in this example, we write that rule, and the user can now establish the connection. And once the user establishes the connection to the endpoint, they are source netted, and then source netted meaning that they, when they're connecting to the RDS instance, they're using the IP address inside of the VPC as the source, right? And you will obviously have your own security policies on security groups and RDS allowing this type of traffic. So there's another layer of security there.
Oh, can I configure security groups on those client VPN ENIs to like
Yes.
control where clients can go more granularly?
Yes. There are security groups for those endpoints as well, and you can, depending on your need, you can implement more security using those security groups.
Oh, cool. Very nice.
Okay. So like I was mentioning, you can also reach your on-prem network. So if you have a user that connects to your VPC and connects to some workload inside of your VPC, but this VPC is also connected to your on-prem environment through like Direct Connect VPN, we should show that as an example. So you don't have to make any changes in terms of the user experience. All you do is update the route table to allow those subnets to reach the 198 network, update your authorization rule to allow them to reach the on-prem. So now they can connect to this VPN endpoint and also reach on-prem resources.
Can they also reach other VPCs in AWS if they're like connected to Transit Gateway or Cloud One?
Yeah, definitely. So you can. I'll show you a slide right after this. Yeah, you can connect to other peered VPC or other VPCs connected to this VPC.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the next thing we show is, like, for example, what about the internet access for this user? By default, like, all traffic is being sent to this client VPN endpoint for that user now from their remote device. And by default, like, the internet traffic is going to go through this too, right? So you have to do some configuration to allow that access. So we put a default route in the client VPN route table to allow them to reach the internet. Client VPN does offer the split tunneling capability where you can just send VPC specific traffic through the endpoint and let the user have their own internet access through their local ISP. So that is also available.
Oh.
And
We have a... Oh yeah, go ahead, continue.
Oh, sorry. So coming to your question, yeah. So you can also enable connectivity to other VPCs through these endpoints. So you just add, for example, in the route table, you add the thing in the authorization rule, and now you can expand your connectivity to other VPCs.
Awesome. We have a really, really good question here from ZB_C. So we currently have a Bastion EC2 instance. Would this be a better alternative to access RDS instances and internal services using an internal ALB? Like, if you have different things that you want to access, would this be better than using a Bastion host? And they're saying that we leverage temporary public key and SSM.
So for connecting to, like, SSH to the instance, there's other services out there. We are not talking about them, to my knowledge. Like EC2 instance connect endpoint would be another service that would benefit if you're just doing SSH.
Yeah. And regarding the RDS, like we spoke about AWS Verified Access, that's one of the service also you can use it. So if you are looking that to authorize and authenticate before you connect to this RDS instances, then AVA will be one of the service you can explore. Client VPN can also be used, but is not providing that level of authorization what AVA will provide you in this case. So it will create a tunnel for you, and you can successfully kind of like connect to the RDS and access it.
Yeah.
But if you're using or you want to segregate only these user can access this RDS based on some group policies or device posture and all those things, then AVA could be another service to explore.
Yeah. And I would say there's some more clarification here. EC2 acts as a bastion. We use a system for connecting to the instance, which is unrelated to this. That's perfect. I think from use case perspective, definitely either AVA or Client VPN would provide you, first and foremost, a higher level of security when you're connecting to your RDS databases or your application load balancers. I would say that AVA gives you the highest level of security because it doesn't just get you into the network and then you have access to various things. It does per request authorization. So that's the highest level of security. You can absolutely go for Client VPN as well, where you have the level of authorization that you get here. It's not a per request kind of authorization. Is that you're connected? That's fine. You're going to get access to all the things now that you're on the network. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve, but definitely versus a single EC2 instance that is a bastion, it's a much more secure solution to go with either of these two.
Yeah. So like Client VPN is like offering you full network access, and then you have other security measures inside, and like the user's request is not getting re-authenticated like AVA is every time, right? You will either re-authenticate once your session expires, or the administrator kicks you off, right? Like ends your session, and then you have to, log in again. So yeah, just have to figure out that use case, and you can use either services.
And ZB_C, let us know in the chat if we've answered your question. And everyone, if you have questions, let us know. We have approximately 10-ish minutes left here. Time flies when you're having fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking about securing access to Amazon VPC deployments or workloads you have in Amazon VPCs or on-prem, for that matter, using verified access and client VPN. We've talked about verified access in the first part of this session. And now we're talking about client VPN. If you folks missed the first part of the session, go to theroutingloop.net. Previous episodes, we have the link here in the chat. Just scroll up and you are going to see there all previous episodes recorded. You can watch them on demand. So don't worry if you've missed the first part of the session. Now, so this is client VPN. We've talked about it. What else do we have, Salman?
Yeah, we have some few slides left, and we can take more questions. We were going to cover how logging is obviously important in these type of environments, right? So Client VPN natively integrates with Amazon CloudWatch, so you can see what client is connecting, what type of client they're using, and what IP address, like the ISP they're using, if authentication happened, failed. So if you need to do troubleshooting in terms of your user experience, you can use CloudWatch for that.
Awesome. And you get, I see here, the logs are a bit small, so I'm going to just zoom in with my eyes a bit. You get a bunch of things. You get the port, you get the device IP, you get username, so you get connection, last update, uptime. So it's a lot of information that you get in these logs that you can create dashboards on, you can create alerting on, right? Like,
Yep.
I guess that's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. And yeah.
Okay, this is great. Let's see if you folks have more questions in the chat. If not, I will have some questions as you folks are thinking about questions in the chat. So Client VPN and AWS Verified Access, two different methods of providing client access to applications. As you folks mentioned, it's AVA does per request authorization. Client VPN just gives you access to the network. What would be the considerations for using each? Like best practices around using AVA versus using Client VPN? When would I use each? What would I start with if I'm like ZB and I have a Bastion host that I'm using for access, not including and not talking about SSM and other things.
Yeah. So from like, if for example, like I'm a developer, I have a bunch of EC2 instance or a bunch of resources inside of my VPC I manage, and I'm just needing access, right? So in that sense, and client VPN would be ideal, right? But then if you have specific business use cases where you want to expose your application to remote users to make it as simple as possible to connect, that where AVA would come in. That's the biggest differentiating factor I see. And
Yeah, like, and on the top of that, like Salman mentioned, it depends the use case as well. So client VPN is more kind of providing access to a particular network or CIDR range that you enable the subnet or VPC, you get access to the whole. But with AVA, you can get more granular control that you want to give access to maybe particular instance, maybe bunch of instance in that particular instance or a particular application or RDS. So depends like what you use case, like from the giving the whole network versus particular application. That's one
Yep.
difference. Other, if you are looking to kind of have some authorization on top of that, right? You want to granular, like kind of control that hook. Whenever the requests come, you want to evaluate those requests because client VPN is not doing that. So then the
Yep.
AVA will come into the picture. That's another difference we see. So it's all based on like what your use case. Like I won't say the client VPN won't solve the problem. It will solve the problem. AVA will also solve the problem. But what you want to achieve based on that, we can decide that which route to go.
Got it. Awesome. Sounds good. Second thing, Ankush, if you want to bring up that diagram where you had the types of resources that you can access with AVA, where you had the ALB and the subnets and the TCP endpoints. I can bring your slide to the screen
Yeah,
once you're there.
yeah, I'm there. So supported endpoint
Okay.
types, right?
Yes. So here, if you mentioned network CIDR,
Mm-hmm.
um, can that network CIDR, or does it have to be in the specific VPC that the AVA instance is associated with, or can it be, for example, in a different VPC that's accessible through TGW or Cloud WAN?
That's a great question, Alex, and I don't have answer right now on the top of my head.
Mm,
I can look for
we
that,
should test
and
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
That would be interesting because what
yeah,
I'm wondering is the other thing, which is a pattern that I see a lot with customers where um, they're tending to they have this tendency of centralizing things, centralizing inbound access to things, centralizing inbound access with AVA, centralizing inbound access with client VPN. They don't
right,
want, like, if they have hundreds of VPCs, they don't want each VPC to have its own VPN endpoint
right,
or its own AVA instance. With client VPN, seems pretty easy because you can centralize it and you can then give it access to that VPC. You can give it access to the entire
right,
network, and kind of the scope of access is pretty big like that. And
right,
security might have some concerns, but um, you can do it now with AWS Verified Access. Um, if you're able to specify certain subnets, right, you can do that in a specific VPC. But what if you want to centralize?
right,
Um,
right.
Also, what if, for example, you want to define subnets on-prem? I don't know if you can do that actually in AVA.
Sorry,
Hmm.
can you repeat the last part? Can you define?
The network CIDR, could it be on-prem accessible through Direct Connect?
Yeah, that's I see. My understanding is you it has to be in the same VPC, but I
Hmm.
might be wrong. I need to double check on that before I give that answer. So probably I'll do
Yeah,
some research, and maybe next routing loop we can clarify to our users as well.
that
That
is
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
That is perfect. We'd love to. We will have you folks back to do the
yeah,
demo. Definitely. Everyone was very excited about us having the demo on the show. So we will absolutely do it.
right,
And we'll also see if that works with CIDRs that are not in the VPC. I don't know.
right,
Actually, we should test it.
right.
Um, awesome. That's perfect. Folks on the chat, any final questions, any thoughts, any comments, anything else that you would love to see on the show? Just so you know, all the things that are upcoming are also on the routing loop under upcoming episodes. You're going to see what we're going to be talking about in the next weeks. We are going through planning right now to see what other topics we're going to be adding. So just let us know. Share some feedback. Let us know what other topics you want to hear more about. What are the topics you want to see demos about? Because if not, then Alex gets to decide, and we're going to have a lot of VPC Lattice and IPv6. And I don't think you folks want that. So no, joking, of course. I love all AWS networking services. We'll have them all on the show, and we're gonna dive deeper in each and every one of them. But it's very important for you folks to share what you'd like to see. And Dominic here is sharing. I think we have a one planned on Cloud WAN. Yes, absolutely. We do need to do a Cloud WAN demo with Direct Connect and how it's supported for global routing and advertising all routes, same routes from multiple data centers, and achieving this global segmentation piece. Super excited about that. Let us know what else you folks want to see. Ankush, Salman, any final thoughts before we wrap up? And while folks think if they have any questions.
Yeah, I think Alex, you put the links for
Mhm.
workshops and stuff. So I want to just give a call out to that. We have it allows you full hands-on access to step by step. So uh, before a demo comes, I think you can also try
Yeah,
yourself. We encourage because hands-on learning is always encouraged, right?
Right. Right. And and
definitely.
and just to add to that, if you have big group who want to try it out, reach out to your account team and they can reach out to us. We can set up lab for you folks, and we can do a big workshop for you all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this is amazing. Folks, don't forget to take the links from the chat. There's a bunch of good stuff there. And looking forward to meeting you all next week when we're going to be talking about Cloud WAN, SD-WAN, all the good stuff there, global routing and integrations for your SD-WAN appliances. So get back to your day. We'll let you go take care of your things, and we'll see you next Wednesday, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on the Routing Loop. Thank you so much, folks, for your time today. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.